Today's project is going to be turning a pin, and I'm going to make it out of an Inlace Acrylester acrylic. And this is a blank called the Peacock, and it was sent to me by family members. I believe it was from the Rockler site. And I'm using the Ultra Cigar Pin Gold kit. This is from Woodcraft, so we've got a mixture of Rockler and Woodcraft. This Peacock is a very brittle material, the Acrylester acrylic. It's not your normal acrylic. It shaves off nice, like maybe like one of these acrylics that shave off a lot easier and they're not as brittle. This is a very brittle material, and therefore it's very difficult to turn. It's the most difficult of any material that you'll turn that you can get a commercially available. I mean, maybe antlers from deer or something might be more difficult, but compared to wood, it's much easier. This is an Amboina burl wood, and this will shave down a lot quicker and you can take bigger cuts. So I'm going to start with, there's two tubes in this kit and they're slightly different in length. One's a little longer, and that's the base. So when I label my blank here, first thing I'm going to do is put a line down the middle and to cut it into two sides and measure the tubes off that. It doesn't have to be exact. Then I put a little triangle so I know which side goes next to which, and now I label them. The base is actually the longer, or the end of the pin, and the cap is the top half. So those are important to label, and I'll show you why later, but those are labeled there. Now, to divide this in half, you can use a bandsaw or even a miter saw if you have enough waste left over. I'm going to use a bandsaw, but because this size of this blank is so long, I could actually use the miter saw to get it a little bit more 90 degrees, which is kind of important. But I'm just going to hand do it right now with the bandsaw. Next, we'll take it to the drill press. For drill pressing these two pieces, the piece I just cut is not really 90 degrees, so if I put it in like this, it might be angled a little bit and the hole might go through one side and be close to the other side. So having that triangle in the middle, I know I can put it down with the factory side 90 degree angle, so it'll sit straight up in the pen blank holder here. So also, when you do this acrylic can blow out the end. So you have to go real slow with the drill press in little bitty bites back and forth. I put water in there to keep it from overheating and melting. Now the wood pieces I have here, I slide up under my pen blank holder so it doesn't blow out the end too. Just give it a little bit of backing. And so again, I'm going to look at the base there, and I know this is the end I just cut on the bandsaw, so it's kind of an angle. So I'm going to try to put that on the top, so it's 90 degrees when it cuts with the drill press. So I'm going to start out, get a hole started here. I get the shavings off with a piece of board here. Put a little water in there. Cool it down. You don't need to do that with wood, of course, but with the plastic sometimes it heats up and could expand the tube, I suppose, expand the plastic or melt it. You take very small passes with this. Add water from time to time. There's one thing I didn't mention, and that's your drill press table really needs to be at 90 degrees. So you need to set it up with right angle. And I had to shim this table to get it exactly square. I put some real thin plastic shims between the drill press table and the add-on table until I get it shimmed exactly square. You know, I put a right angle here and a right angle here. I'll go grab one real quick and show you. Alright, so this is the right angle I use. You put a bit in the chuck without the pin holder, blank holder on there. You start out with just bringing it down to the table and checking in different angles here to make sure that it's exactly 90. Otherwise, what will happen is your hole will be off center by the time you get down through the bottom. It'll be very close to one edge, and you won't have a lot of material to turn So you want it to stay in the middle instead of being, if it's a little angled one way or the other. It's worth shimming your table and making sure that you've got it 90 degrees in a couple different angles. That works quite well. And there's another trick I'll show you for finding the center point on this when you set up the pin blank holder. So to find the center, when you first set your pin blank in here and to center the drill bit before I clamped it down, I've got it clamped now on a couple ends here. So I put a center finder piece on there and found the center by just drawing some X's over there. Let me see if I can show that there. One. Usually want to go around all four sides and take the middle square out of that. It might form a little bit off. So you can see there's X's, and that's where you put a really tiny bit in when you're first setting up your holder to make sure to clamp it down. Once you've done that, you can make tons of pins and leave it just clamped to the table, and it'll always be in the center. So that's why I don't need to do it for these subsequent pieces. So I'm right toward the end here, and I'm going to show you how slow I actually go when I'm getting down toward the end here, so I don't blow out the end. You could kind of hear it right when it went through, but I took real little passes. Acrylic, again, you could blow out the other end very easily. So you want to go real slow, little bites, keep some water in there. And some material, if you go too many times and your table's not set right and you're wobbling and things are loose, it might make the hole too big. So you don't, with wood, you can go down almost 1 or 2 passes and make it all the way through. And again, you don't need to add water for wood, but for this I add a little water. I'm going to vacuum that out in a minute to get all the dust out of the center and the water out. I'll show you that part too. So I've probably turned about 20 or 30 of these in the past 2 weeks, and I haven't had a blowout. And this one, that first blank I did, it blew out the end there. This Acrylester acrylic's very finicky. The good news is I've got enough room to fit the tube if I switch the cap and base side in there and still shave that off. So I've got extra material, I'll be able to use the blank. My advice is always keep extra blanks. You can see I've got extra blanks. Always keep extra tubes. I've got a bunch of extra tubes there too, because sometimes if it chips out and you can't repair it, you'll want to use the extra tube. So the next thing I do generally is I sand off the tubes to make them rough. You want to make that brass rough so the glue will stick to it. So to sand down my tubes, I'm using a piece of really rough, I don't know what grade is, 50. This is 50 sand belt from a belt sander that had broken off. And I'm going to make sure that I get the ends scuffed up, because that's the most important part for sticking, because you don't want to blow out the ends or have chips come off the ends. You want it to be well glued to that. So just rotate around. I like to use the edge. I like to use the edge of a table so I can get my hand over it. I know some people hold it on both ends like that. That just seems like you're going to get the tips of your fingers. So do 1/2. Scuff it up. You don't want to overdo it, because then it will make it tube smaller, but I've never had that happen, and I've been pretty rough on a lot of them. Never made it too small for the opening, and they've all been sticking, so I haven't had a problem with that. So I'm going to scuff both of them up. I don't know if you can see the fine little scratches in there. The fine scratches will help the glue stick better. So for the next part, I'm going to put the glue on the tubes. I use this little tool you can get. It's kind of tapered, and I'll slide the tube. I also always wear gloves when you're dealing with the super glue. This is Acrylate, and this bottle's a little old. I've heard people say you can leave this stuff open for a couple days on your workbench and it won't be a problem, but I certainly close it. The key is the ends the very tips, the ends, the first end that you put in, it's going to rake all the glue off. As you push in, it's going to push it toward the back. So the back end down here, you'll have plenty of glue on, but this top end's what you worry about. So I always put a little extra glue here. I don't put it in the tube. I know some people will put it into the board tube here and then slide the tube through there, but I'm always worried that it's going to gunk up inside the tube on the inner wall of that tube and get in there and mess with the bushings and the other parts. So when I put that glue on again, I try to get a lot around the tip here and smear it around. I use the tip of the tube to kind of smear it back and forth and get it toward that end without going around the lip. Again, I don't want it on the inside of the tube. And we'll just give it a few back and forth. We're going to try to twist that as we go in the bore of the pin blank, through the center bore, I mean. It will push it all toward the back end there, so I don't need to get a whole lot on the back end, but I need to make sure this tip has got plenty on there. Then I'm going to spray it with activator. So first I'm going to slide it in here. This is always a little tricky. Turning as I go, spinning around, turning. Get it in there. It's in there good. Now I'm going to give it a little spritz with the activator. Just kind of lock it in so it's not moving around and so it starts to dry on the ends. And the other one, the blowout one, I'm going to make sure I go from the side that's not blowing out and put it in this end and do the same thing. Alright, so I actually had a good 1/4 of an inch in that blowout part left over. You won't always have that luxury, so make sure you get extra blanks always and extra tubes for the inside in case you need to redo the pin. You don't have to rebuy the whole kit if you've got extra tubes. I always order extra tubes. I've got a pile of them over here for this type of pin kit. If you're doing all different kits all the time, yeah, it's gonna end up being a bit of a problem to keep extra parts for everything. While this is drying, I usually wait at least 5 minutes, if not more. I usually try to go find something else to do in the shop, even though I sprayed it with a little activator on the ends. I'm letting it dry up, so often I'll go sharpen my skew chisel and get ready for the turning at this point. Just want to talk about the blanks. This is a beautiful blank. It's called Wobali Green, and it has a very nice translucence, just like the Peacock. And they're both called Inlace Acrylic, Acrylester Acrylic. The terminology is a little confusing, I think. And one of my other favorites, I like Amboina Burl. This, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's got a nice burl. It turns well. It's kind of a dense wood. But there's other, you can buy them from people that'll mix them up and send them and make some really nice blanks that are beautiful. On the outside, it may not look like much, but believe me, when this thing is shined up, the translucence, you can see deep into it, and it's multi-layered, and it's just beautiful stuff. Again, the Acrylester acrylics are very hard to turn, but they're a beautiful pin blank. The difference between these two, if you're new to pin turning, the wood is very easy to turn. You can do it really fast, but the finishing technique with super glue finish is difficult to get right. Whereas the Acrylester acrylic is very difficult to turn. You have to take very fine shavings, take a long time to turn it, lots of tool sharpenings, but the finishing is very easy. You just sand it down. You don't need any super glue finish for this, and it polishes up really easy and really nice. So it's kind of a mixed bag between the wood and the acrylics, but today is the acrylics.